Today we're going to be going over how to install CachyOS for 3D artists, videographers, and maybe even photographers. If you've watched the previous episode on how to write your ISO image to a USB, you should be ready to follow this video. If not, look up in the top corner to watch that video first. Now, this is a little guide that I've written up for this tutorial. You guys can access this in the description. It is a website called a 3D Artist's Comprehensive Guide to Linux. And this kind of goes through this whole tutorial on that page on how to do everything from the initial install all the way to configuring your desktop to look a little bit better. And here we're just going to boot up our drive and we're going to select CachyOS and we're just going to let it start up. Once we're in the CachyOS desktop, we're going to open the installer, and then you're going to confirm your language, your time zone, and your keyboard. Once you've done that, then we will see the bootloader section. If you don't know what that is, please just stick to line the default. Next, we're going to be diving into the drive selection, but you want to make sure that your correct drive is selected, because if you erase this drive, it will remove everything. Now, on most distros, there is an option that you can select where it automatically repartitions your Windows drive and gives you space to install Linux as well. In this case, we're keeping things simple and we're just doing one OS on one drive. So select your disk. We're going to do erase disk, and then we're going to move on and select encrypt disk. This is not a required step, but in my personal opinion, if you're locking the front door with the password, why are you leaving the back door open? So now we're on the CachyOS installer step of choosing a desktop. There's Plasma, there's GNOME, there's even things like Cinnamon and XFCE. There are two display servers, and all that you really need to know is that there is a newer one called Wayland, which is technically better and more secure, but a lot of software is still developed on X11 for 3D, and that means that you're going to need that to make sure that your software runs the smoothest. You can get it to work on other desktops that run on Wayland first, but it's more troubleshooting, and sometimes when you're just trying to get your work done, that's not what you're trying to do. Honestly, between Cinnamon and XFCE, those are your best choices for doing 3D art because they are still X11 based and they are incredibly stable. Next, we're going to hop into the additional packages section, and I'm just going to select a couple of packages that help you just roll into CachyOS just a little bit easier with the Cinnamon desktop because it's pretty minimal at the baseline. So we're going to go to the GNOME apps section, then select FileRoller, and then we're also going to select Lupe, as well as GNOME Disk Utility and the GNOME Calculator. Then we're going to find the Mate desktop, and then we're going to find Celluloid, which is like a video player. Once you got that, then check printing support for cups and whatnot if you have your own printer. And then we're going to click next. This is where you create your user, pick a username. Obviously, I'm doing Ronin as my alias here, so that is what it's going to be. Enter in a super secure password and make sure that that is the administrator account. And click next. Here, we're going to find ourselves on the summary page. And on the summary page, all we are going to see here is everything we've done along this installer. So you see your bootloader, your desktop, the partitions that it's building for the drive that you're erasing. And if everything looks good, then you are free to click install and install now. Your disk will be written over and it will install CachyOS on this disk. Once this is all done, we're going to just select restart now and we're going to just hit done. Once the desktop has loaded up, this is your first time booting, there's a couple of things you're going to want to do. Luckily, CachyOS has built you this CachyOS Hello dialog, which helps you get into that. So we're going to hop into the Apps and Tweaks section, and we're going to select System Update. We're also going to later do rank mirrors, and if you need, you can install your gaming packages. Enter the password. You're going to have to click on the window, because once it's done, you have to hit enter to close it, and if it's not selected, you may accidentally open another window. Once that is done, it may recommend a reboot, in which we will do now. So you just hit your start menu and then select reboot. Once you're back up in your system again, you should be ready to rank your mirrors. A mirror is where you might be downloading software from, and in this case, it's finding the closest mirror to you because generally closer equals faster. Then you can select install gaming packages once that's done as well. And then we're going to move on to the next steps, which is going to be checking the NVIDIA drivers as well as installing a couple of packages that you might need if you're going to use DaVinci Resolve and Houdini. So we're going to open up a new terminal here, and we're going to just type in clear. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to install a package manager called Flatpak. We're going to type in sudo pacman-S Flatpak. Then you're going to enter your password. You're going to hit Y for yes, and you're going to let that install. I've sped some of this up just for the case of making it easier for you to watch. Next, we're going to type in NVIDIA-SMI into the terminal. This is going to bring up a window that shows you whether the computer is communicating properly with your drivers and your GPU, or communicating properly through your drivers to your GPU. Next, we're going to install something that is helpful for your quality of life on Cinnamon, Fuse 2, which is required to run app images and to run the DaVinci Resolve installer later down this series of tutorials, as well as nemo-fileroller, which allows you to extract zip folders and compressed folders in the file manager. So we're just going to hit yes to enter that command. And again, all of these commands can be found on the online guide for 3D artists. Once that is done installing, we're going to quickly just pull up this guide and just review to make sure we've done everything. You can check the firewall, but it should be running properly. But I included that there just in case you need to know. Now we're going to go into some of the settings that are important for making sure that Blender works properly with your desktop, as well as things like your dark mode and your wallpaper set that you like, and a few other customizations that just make CachyOS more familiar for a Windows user. So we're going to hop into the settings, the system settings, and then we're going to go into themes. And then if you select themes, you're going to see an option to select the applications and add way to dark. I don't know how to actually pronounce that, so if you do know how to pronounce that, let me know in the comments. And then we're also going to select an icon theme that is in line with the dark theme. And before we go back, we're going to also come over to this right side settings panel and select prefer dark mode. This just ensures that additional applications are generally told to prefer dark mode if your desktop is in dark mode. Alrighty, now we're going to go back and we're going to just pop down to this thing labeled Windows. And inside of here, there's a section in behavior in which we want to change the Alt to Super. Super is your Windows key or your command key. And then the tiling, we're going to tell it to maximize instead of pop into the top section. As you can see, if I turn it off, you'll see how the behavior is slightly different than what Windows would be. So we're just going to leave that on. Again, these are settings that you can customize on your own. And from here on out, I think that we're just going to look at this guide to see if there's anything else that is essential for you, but we've pretty much covered all that. But I'm going to quickly show you how to customize the themes even further. So this is not how Cinnamon looks when it comes on Linux Mint, and the developers that created this desktop had some other things that make it look a little more polished. So we're going to type in sudo pacman-S mint-themes space mint-y-icons. Now when we hit enter, we're going to enter your password, hit Y for yes to install, and that's going to just download a couple more themes. And then when we go back to the themes section in our system settings, if you are in the themes appearance and icons menu, you'll see that you have all those other options that I had when I was selecting. And you can select the Mint Y themes, which I generally think look a little bit better. You can also see that changing the icon theme changes the icons across the entire operating system, which is super cool. You can select your own themes from online, and then we're going to just go into background and select a background that you guys like from your pictures. I'm going to select this one. That's super great, and we're just going to move on from there. I think that is about all we need to cover today. You should now have a Cinnamon-based X11 desktop on a CachyOS or Arch installation in which you have ranked your mirrors, you've done a system update to make sure that all your packages are up to date, and you've also learned how to set your desktop into a dark mode. Now all you need to do is start installing your software. So the next couple of videos in this playlist will be how to install Blender, a couple of different ways actually, and the benefits of each and every other kind of way. how to install DaVinci Resolve, both the free and studio version, but I will say on Linux, it is recommended you use the studio version. Honestly, if you're doing any kind of professional work, you should be using the studio version. Besides the point, I'll also be going into installing Houdini and a couple of other applications like Affinity, which in Affinity's case is not directly compatible with Linux. And I'm going to introduce you to something called Wine. And then there is someone who has created a port called Affinity on Linux that has made this process way easier, and it has GPU pass-through to make sure that Affinity is running on your graphics card. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Keep an eye out and be sure to check the Linux guide online, because sometimes it's nice to have a written guide that you can follow along while following the tutorial, as well as being able to scroll down and go through the troubleshooting section and see if there's something that can help you solve a problem if you run into it while following this tutorial. That is all for today. I am running on Linux, and I'll see you in the next video.